What is going on, everybody? My name is SiahZ, and welcome to a 10 Things I Wish I Knew Sooner on Helldivers 2. Now, I've been playing this game religiously since it has been released, and I've been actually loving it. Now, there's some things I'm going to be showing you through this video that I 100% wish I knew when I first started playing this game to get you guys, better through the progression, to make your gameplay experience easier while you're going through the higher tier missions. And honestly, it's some useful info that I think a lot of you may not know. So that's why I wanted to make this video and get it out as soon as possible so you guys can have the best experience on this game. So for the first tip that we have here is you can actually shoot different body parts off of your enemies. Now, depending on how your weapon is on penetrating armor, it will affect basically what you can do. So I'm running a railgun here that has really good armor penetration power, and as we can see, you can shoot different like tails off of your enemies, you can shoot their legs off, and you can even crack armor, as you can see there. So doing so will expose different weak points to the enemies, will allow you to do more damage to them. If you shoot their tails off, they'll eventually kind of like bleed out and die, and shooting their weak points as well will do even more damage. So shooting different stuff like that is very key to taking down your tougher enemies in this game. And early on, I really didn't know that until I started to actually go in and actually start to test it and shoot different body parts, and I see, oh, if I shoot the legs off of this, enemy type, they won't actually rush me. And the heavier armor types, if I shoot their armors off and actually crack them, it'll expose more of their weak points, allowing my team to actually hit them easier and do more damage. So it is very useful information early game to actually recognize that you can do that and actually incorporate that into your guys' playthrough and fighting the tougher enemies to take them down quicker to get through the missions. This way you can get more loot and have an easier time and not be stalling for hours against those tougher enemy types. So the next tip that I want to talk about here is actually how to conserve ammo and make sure that you guys are not wasting it when you're actually going and doing missions. So this way, you're not constantly running out of ammo when you're fighting in those intense battles. So the first thing that we're going to talk about here is just basically make sure that whenever you're shooting, you're not constantly reloading, as every time you reload, it will get rid of that mag and it won't conserve the ammo. So just say you shoot 50% like this and then you reload, that mag is gone. You do not get it back, so you will lose that remaining ammo that you had. So make sure that you're always shooting your full clip out before you actually go ahead and reload. Now, once you're actually out of ammo and you call resupply down, I did, but mine got destroyed here. What I want to talk about is just make sure you pick up one supply. That one supply will usually fill up all your weapons ammo, or at least majority of it. So if you're running the AR like I'm running here that only has 7 mags, you will actually get all of the mags back. Same thing with my machine pistol here. And what you want to do basically is make sure that you're not going and picking another one up right away. As you can see, I have 6 out of 7. And if I pick that up, I'm only going to get 1 mag back. So what I usually do is call it in, pick one up. I will leave the remaining there, go out and fight. And then whenever I come back, when I'm running low, like 1 mag left or no mags at all, I'm running back, I can easily come and grab the other one and refill back up. The reason why that's important is because if you can see, if I call in a resupply, so I just called the resupply in, and as you can see, the resupply is a cooldown. I cannot call that in for 3 more minutes. So when you're fighting, if you're sitting there panicking, you're reloading, you're grabbing, a resupply for only 1 mag to 2 mags, that's really going to hinder your team and hinder how much ammo and how long in the fight you can actually last for. So just make sure whenever you're doing that, you drain all the ammo before you reload, and then you go ahead and pick up the resupply whenever you're out of, I would say, about 80 to 90% of your ammo reserves. Then you can go ahead and pick it up. Just don't waste it if you're 1 to 2 mags down, or 1 to 2 grenades down. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about here is actually how you can select different firing groups and zoom levels and toggle your flashlight on and all that. So the way you do that, I am playing on controller here, but it should be the same as whatever your reload button is. You're just going to hold that reload button in, and as you can see, I can select so many different options with my weapons here. Now, each weapon will have a different thing what you can do. Some you can select, semi burst, some you can't do anything at all, some you can only do the flashlight, and so on. So for this, basically, I can go and say I want this to be a 100-meter zoom on the sight, and I can do a 1-tap for a long-range shooting if I want, if I see an enemy all the way over there, or I can set it to burst fire on a 50-meter zoom, and so this way I can conserve ammo and so on. I could even turn the flashlight off the flashlight on, or I could leave it on auto where it'll turn on whenever I zoom in. Now this is really, really effective when you pair it with other weapons, such as the Stalwart light machine gun. Now, as you can see, if I go into it, I can actually select the RPMs that it fires. So I can go slow rate of fire if I just want to conserve ammo and hit precise shots, or if I have a very tough enemy in front of me, I can put that all the way up to the max RPMs it can shoot to actually do some insane damage and rate of fire on a single type of enemy if they have a giant weak point. Now doing this is really useful, especially early on, so this way you can go ahead and tune the weapons even more to your exact playstyle. Now for the fourth tip is actually using your minimap. Now yes, you may say the tutorial taught us about using your minimap, but it has such vital information on it that I could not include a 10 things I wish I knew sooner list without actually putting this on the list. So using your minimap is going to show you a lot of vital information, like I said, such as enemy locations on your map, where POI's at, like side objectives you can go to, and if you die, you can actually use it to figure out where your items are at, and even where your teammates' items are at on the floor, and so on. So using this stuff is very important to really figure out a lot of key information about the game, like I said, and even on the minimap, as you can see, that red zone, that shows you where a very highly contested zone is at, to where enemies are at and stuff like that, and that is another side objective where you can clear out, which you'll get more money and stuff like that as well. So like I said, a lot of vital information using the minimap, and I just had to include it as one of the tips on this list. Now the next tip we're going to talk about, since we're on the minimap topic, is actually pinging. Now pinging is a very big vital point of actually using this game. You can set up, points of, interest for your team, so they'll see on the minimap, like, hey, let's go over and do this objective right here. They can look and see it and say, oh, okay, we can go there. Also, another thing that you can do is while you're actually going around in the game is you can hit the right bumper. I'm not really too sure what it is on keyboard since I play on controller, but you can actually ping enemies for your team to focus. For example, I could ping him, there's a location there, there's a location there, and so on. I could say we need to focus this enemy, ping it so my team knows. This is a very good way when you're in a group, if you can't communicate, to target one enemy, so this way your team knows which one you're shooting or which one to take down first. On top of that, pinging on the minimap, you can actually get light armor here, as you can see with the scout passive, to where markers placed on the map will generate radar scans every 2 seconds. The cool thing you can do with the light armor is you can actually go on the minimap, drop a ping, and as you can see, it'll scan all those enemies in a proximity, giving your team knowledge that, hey, there's how many enemies are there, that's their layout, and we can go ahead and formulate a strategy to take them down. So it is very cool, very useful to ping on the minimap to let your teammates know. You could ping enemies, hey, let's focus this one, and with that passive as well, with the light armor pinging to scan the enemies is pretty much really useful and a must-needed tip in my opinion when starting this game out. Now the next tip I wanted to talk about here is actually where to land when you're choosing your landing spot. So majority of people probably land near the objective and then go ahead and clear, but I'm going to tell you the way that you should be landing is away from the objective. Now why would you want to do this? Well, you have a good amount of time to actually go ahead and complete missions. Specifically on this one we have 40 minutes, so what I would do was land on the outside here next to the optional objective, and then this way you can go ahead, clear out the optional objective, clear out the enemies out here, get more credits, more samples, more coins or metals, sorry, and you can get all that loot and explore the map while you're going ahead and clearing towards the objective. Rather than if you said, okay, I'm going to land at the objective, you would have to go ahead and clear that out, and then times it takes you to go ahead and clear everything else and get the optional objectives, it would just be very inefficient. So that's why landing near, not landing near, but landing away from the objective and clearing towards it is better than just landing at the objective and trying to do the optional stuff. Now the next thing I'm going to talk about is the difficulty. Now you can choose what difficulty you wanted to play on whenever you go to the galactic table before you choose any missions. So obviously the higher the difficulty, the better the rewards is going to be, and as you can see at the bottom, you can actually get higher tier samples the higher the difficulty you go up at. Now I will say though that make sure that you can actually complete the challenges on those higher difficulties. Don't just say, oh, I'm going to go straight up to hard when you can actually go ahead and complete hard. So what I would say is go on the difficulty that you are comfortable with clearing, get those levels, get those samples to upgrade, and then gradually go up in the difficulties rather than going and spiking yourself straight to the hardest difficulty you can possibly do and taking hours and, failing missions and being very inefficient when you're actually playing this game. Now for the next tip, I wanted to talk about some things that I would prioritize getting whenever you guys are starting this game out. So now I would say the stalwart machine gun is definitely really good and is very good on taking out enemies, the small and even the tougher, tankier enemies. It's better than pretty much majority of the weapons you're going to get off the start. So I would say go ahead and prioritize that. Also, I would say go ahead and prioritize getting the supply packs. Now, getting these supply packs is basically going to allow you to give ammunition to your teammates and so on whenever you're out doing these missions, and it's going to be another way that you can keep your ammo reserves up and not have to rely on calling the supply pods in, especially if you run into that issue where your supply pod is on a timer and you used all your ammunition before you can call another one in. So supply pads are really nice to get as well. On top of all of that, for your war bonds, I would also say to prioritize getting stuff like your super credits and getting stuff like new weapons and new frag grenades. Now you can also look at the item info by pressing Y, whatever button it is for you at the bottom right if you're on keyboard, I'm not too sure. But you can go ahead and look and it'll tell you the passive, the armor, stats, and so on, whether it's heavy or light. You can kind of go ahead and figure out based on the speed. But like I said, majority of these though are just kind of different cosmetics. Like for example, the helmets are pretty much all just different cosmetics. They all have the same armor, they all have the same speed and stamina regen. So I would say kind of early on, don't really prioritize getting the helmets, maybe the body armor, but I would definitely say the super credits and the weapons and other utilities, especially the P19 Redeemer pistol. It absolutely shreds, so I would say 100% prioritize weapons rather than the actual armor. Now the next thing I want to talk about is just the different type of armor types. Now the armor types in this game are light, medium, and heavy, and I would say for team comp, if you're playing solos, try to stay away from the light armor. It just really doesn't have any armor rating, and against the tougher enemies, especially on the higher challenge levels, if you're trying to go to them quickly, like I said, I would advise against doing. But I noticed when I was running it, I was getting like 1 to 2 tapped by most of the tougher enemies in the game. So I would advise running medium to heavy armor if you're playing solo by yourself. But in a team comp, definitely having a light armored player will be really good, and having like 2 mediums and a heavy would probably be ideal. But definitely in solo group play by yourself, stay away from the light armor and run something more tankier, so this way you're not just going to get one tapped in those tougher mission types. Now the last tip I'm going to talk about here basically is just using the terrain, using elevation and stuff like that to really get an advantage on enemies in this game. Now here I'm on top of kind of like an exposed kind of cliff face here, like a rock. I was able to go up it and I'm able to get a really nice POI here down on the enemies and just basically shoot at them. And like I said, some enemy types are able to get me like this, but majority of them are going to kind of be stuck below, and I'm just going to be able to shoot down on them and not really have to worry about anything. So it's definitely good to use your terrain, especially if you're getting chased by some larger enemies like the chargers, to really get around, shoot their backside, and be able to block where they're coming from. So definitely using your terrain in this game is very helpful to stay alive and get really good LOS on enemies' weak points to do all that juicy damage. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and if you did find any tips in here useful or helpful, if you guys could consider hitting that like and subscribe button, it really helps me with the YouTube algorithm to push the video out to as most people as possible, and it really lets me know you guys are enjoying these type of guides. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day or your night, depending when you're watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.